Hello, my dear mastermind. They looked into your eyes, and something in their mind shifted. Not because you said anything loud, not because you moved a certain way, but because your presence carries a timeline they can't comprehend. You know what happened in that moment. Their ego tried to calculate you, tried to shrink you, tried to label you, and the system inside them returned one silent error. Too advanced. Cannot process. That's the moment everything shifted. They realized you're not standing in this year with the rest of them. You're operating from the future, thinking from angles they haven't even discovered, walking with a sense of vision they can't translate into their language. And the funniest part, you're not even trying. You're not forcing anything. You're not flexing. You're not performing. You're just being you. And that alone is decades ahead of the version they thought they understood. You ever notice how people stare a little too long at you? Like they're trying to read something written between your eyelashes. Because reality whispers around you. Your silence carries blueprints. Your gaze carries answers. Your aura carries maps of situations they haven't even realized they're walking into. And they feel that. They feel the weight of someone who has already lived through things they haven't even begun. Someone whose intuition is practically an entire navigation system. Someone whose instinct doesn't guess. It knows. Here's what really unsettled them. You didn't react like them. You didn't come apart like them. You didn't rush like them. You moved with that "I've been here before" type of calm, the kind that only people who've handled invisible seasons and passed quiet internal tests understand. You carry that steady certainty of a person who rebuilt themselves in silence, while the world assumed you were standing still. That's why when they looked into your eyes, they didn't just see confidence. They didn't just see strength. They saw history. They saw timelines inside you. They saw lessons carved into you that taught you things no book could ever teach. They saw depth they couldn't imitate, even if they trained for a lifetime. And here's the secret they'll never say out loud. When someone realizes they're dealing with a future version of a human being, they stop talking reckless. They stop playing with your name. They stop trying to compete. Because how do you compete with somebody who's already lived through the version of your life you haven't reached yet? How do you challenge someone who can sense a lie before it leaves your mouth? How do you unsettle someone whose mind is architected for long-term victory? They can't. That's why they freeze. That's why their tone changes. That's why their eyes drop first. You see, you're not ahead because you tried to be. You're ahead because life placed you in moments that matured your insight faster than your age. You're ahead because you had to learn patterns early. You're ahead because the journey that was meant to slow you only strengthened you into someone people don't know how to categorize. You're ahead because when others were trying to appear successful, you were trying to understand yourself. You grew inward while they performed outward, and that creates a gap decades wide. So now they look at you differently, not as someone they can play with, not as someone they can predict, not as someone they can fool. They look at you like someone they underestimated for too long. And now the truth is right in front of their face. You are not from here. You're operating from levels built in silence, powered by intuition, guided by something they'll never decipher. And the wildest part, you're just getting started. You know what really threw them off? It wasn't your words. It wasn't your moves. It was the timeline they felt radiating off you the second your eyes met theirs. Because the truth is, you don't look at people the way most do. You don't look at them, you look through them. Not with disrespect, but with recognition. You see the patterns forming before they do. You see the shifts before they hit. You see the intentions behind the tones, the cracks behind the confidence, the signals behind the frustration. And when someone realizes you're reading a version of them they didn't even realize they were broadcasting, they worry, not the obvious kind, the subtle one, the kind that tightens their expression, the kind that makes them blink too slow, the kind that makes them adjust their posture like they suddenly forgot how to stand, because for the first time, they feel opened up around someone who hasn't said a single word. That's the power of being ahead. Your silence speaks the truth. They try to hide, and that's why they claim you're difficult to understand. Not because you're confusing, but because you're accurate. Too accurate. They don't know how to deal with someone who sits in a room and sees the next 4 outcomes without forcing anything. Someone who doesn't need to raise their voice to guide the energy. Someone who doesn't chase approval because they've already confirmed themselves in private. Someone who doesn't react emotionally because they've overcome experiences. These people haven't even acknowledged yet. They're not unsure about who you are. They're unsure about how you became that way. What they can't comprehend is that your eyes changed the moment you rose through things they don't know about. Experience refined you. Lessons shaped you. Loss disciplined you. Trust difficulties sharpened you. Nights where you had to rebuild your mind from scratch turned you into someone whose intuition runs faster than their logic. They look at you and see a calm person, but inside that calm is a whole archive of experiences that matured you at a speed life never prepared them for. That's why they say things like you've changed, you act different, you're distant, or you're not the same anymore. It's not that you changed, it's that you advanced. And advanced people look unfamiliar to those who stayed the same. They confuse evolution for attitude, boundaries for coldness, standards for ego. They mistake focus for arrogance. They mistake silence for weakness. They mistake your patience for softness, until the moment comes when your quiet decisions outsmart their loud assumptions. And then the truth hits them with no warning. You're not someone they can navigate easily, because the future version of you that was once forming quietly is now standing in front of them, fully grown, fully aware, fully steady. They can't redirect this version of you. They can't influence this version of you. They can't distract this version of you. You notice too much. You know too much. You've lived too much. And that is why when they looked into your eyes, they saw a wisdom that didn't match your age, a strength that didn't match your tone, a calm that didn't match the situations they tried to pull you into. And the deeper truth, they saw their own reflection and realized you no longer fit the version of you they created in their mind. They saw a person they can't predict, can't guide, can't decode, can't box in. They saw someone who outgrew the story they wrote about you, someone rewriting their own path with a pen dipped in clarity, discipline, and emotional intelligence. You're decades ahead because you finally became the version of yourself your younger self knew was possible, and that's what unsettled them most. You stepped into your future at the exact moment they expected you to fall back into your past. You ever notice the look people get when they suddenly realize the version of you they created in their mind doesn't match the one standing in front of them? That glitch, that hesitation, that microsecond where their whole blueprint dissolves. That's exactly what happened the moment they looked into your eyes. They weren't expecting maturity. They weren't expecting depth. They weren't expecting a mind that already traveled past every situation they set. They expected the old patterns, the old softness, the old you, the one who tolerated nonsense because you didn't want discomfort, the one who explained yourself too much because you hoped they'd understand, the one who cared too deeply because you thought everyone had the same spirit. That version is gone, completely gone. And what replaced it is a version they don't have the manual for, a version with boundaries stronger than their excuses, a version with intuition sharper than their intentions, a version who studies energy more than words, behavior more than promises, patterns more than apologies. They don't know how to navigate this evolved you, because this time, you built your own, and you didn't announce it. You didn't broadcast it. You didn't ask for permission. You rose in silence and let your aura communicate the rest. They stare at you like they just missed a chapter in the story, because they did. They missed the late nights where your mind broke and rebuilt itself. They missed the moments you wiped your own strain, alone. They missed the challenges you handled with nobody cheering. They missed the moments where you almost gave up. But something inside you whispered, "Not yet." They missed the internal struggle that forged your strength. They show up at the finished product confused, because they weren't present for the construction. And when someone wasn't there for your becoming, they never fully understand your being. They look at your calm and call it distant. They look at your focus and call it selfish. They look at your standards and call it attitude. They can't decode you because they never studied the journey, just the reactions. But here's the twist. Your reactions changed because you changed. Not for them, but for yourself. You stopped giving your energy to people who didn't value it. You stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped shrinking yourself so others could feel tall in front of you. You stopped waiting for people to treat you right and started treating yourself like the priority. Now, when they look into your eyes, they see something powerful: accountability. Not the kind you force onto others, the kind you applied to yourself. You held yourself to a higher standard than anyone else could. You refined your emotions. You trained your thoughts. You upgraded your habits. You aligned your life with your purpose instead of their expectations. And that level of self-control unsettles the ones still controlled by everything around them. They think you're emotionless, but the truth is, you're emotionally evolved. They think you're distant, but the truth is, you're selective. They think you're cold, but the truth is, your spirit finally stopped entertaining noise. And this is where the gap forms, a gap time created, a gap growth expanded, a gap they can't jump no matter how hard they try because they stayed comfortable while you stayed disciplined. That's why you feel ahead, not because you're better, but because you kept going when they paused. You kept learning when they stayed stubborn. You kept reflecting when they kept projecting. You kept healing when they kept unsettling others. They're not looking at someone lucky. They're looking at someone who did the work. And now your eyes carry the vocabulary of every lesson you survived. They carry the clarity of someone who can see through motives before they reveal themselves. They carry the quiet confidence of someone who trusts their path even when walking alone. They carry a timeline of growth they never imagined you'd reach. You didn't jump ahead, you earned ahead. People don't realize how far ahead you are until they try to meet you at a level you left years ago. They walk into the conversation expecting the old rhythm, the old emotional buttons they used to press to feel powerful. But when they try it now, nothing. No reaction, no spark, no emotional slip-up, just silence, just observation, just control. And that silence unsettles them more than any argument ever could, because it proves you're no longer someone they can sway. You're someone they must respect. They look into your eyes and finally understand you weren't acting different. You were growing. You were elevating. You were outgrowing every limitation they projected onto you. While they were busy analyzing your past, you were busy designing your future. While they were talking about who you used to be, you were building the version they were completely unprepared for. That's why they stare now. Because they feel the time gap, the mindset gap, the discipline gap, the inner shift. They feel it in the way you speak less, but mean more. They feel it in the way you no longer force connections. They feel it in the way your presence now demands a different level of honesty. Your evolution wasn't loud. It was smooth. It happened in the quiet hours, when nobody was checking on you. It happened in the moments where you had to rebuild your confidence from scraps. It happened when life handed you lessons that felt like setbacks but turned into upgrades. You didn't skip steps. You walked through challenges they never saw, faced difficulties they never met, grew through moments they overlooked. They see the strength but not the sacrifice. They see the certainty but not the nights of doubt. They see the glow up but not the hard nights. That contrast alone makes you feel out of reach to them. And here's the truth they'll never admit. They didn't expect you to make it this far. Some secretly hoped you'd stay small because your growth stretched their comfort. Others doubted your discipline. Others doubted your clarity. Others doubted you had the courage to reinvent your life. But you did all of it, without asking for recognition. Your eyes carry the blueprint of someone who rebuilt their entire world from the inside out. That's why people pause when they meet your eyes. They sense the distance between who you were and who you are now, and they know they didn't grow with you. They sense the discipline woven into your presence. They sense the maturity settled into your silence. They sense the precision in your intuition. They sense the authority in your calm. You don't have to announce your evolution. Your energy speaks it. And the wildest part, you're not even done. What they're seeing now is just the preview, just the early chapter of who you're becoming. They're stunned by the introduction, while you're quietly building the full version behind the scenes. They think you're ahead now, but in your mind, you're only getting started. Your silence isn't empty, it's loaded with insight they didn't expect, with vision they can't understand, with strength they can't mirror, with awareness they can't hide from. When you look at someone now, they feel seen, like you can read the truth beneath the surface. And the reason they think you're ahead is simple. You no longer navigate life with emotions alone. You move with patterns, perspective, purpose. That's what separates you. You're not reacting to life anymore. You're reading it with clarity. And that's why when they look into your eyes, the first thought that flashes across them is the one they'll never say aloud. This person is operating on another level. The moment they look at you now, something shifts inside them. something they can't explain, something they try to hide. It's the quiet realization that you see from a vantage point they have no access to. They're still thinking in days. You're thinking in decades. They're focused on temporary wins. You're focused on long-term direction. They're still seeking validation from crowds. You've learned to move with intention. That gap isn't distance, it's evolution. And evolution always makes people uncomfortable, especially the ones who stayed the same while you kept rising quietly. They replay old memories, trying to compare who you were to who you are now. And the difference feels unreal. You're not just grown, you're transformed. You didn't just sharpen the edges of your character, you redesigned the entire foundation. Your decisions now come from clarity they've never reached. Your confidence isn't loud, it's rooted. Your standards aren't open for negotiation, they're part of who you are. And that's why they pause when your eyes meet theirs. Because the person standing in front of them isn't someone they can assume they understand. It's someone they must relearn from the beginning. People can lie to themselves about your growth when you're not present. They can pretend you're unchanged, pretend you're lucky. They can pretend you're guessing. But the second they're in your presence, the illusion breaks. Your energy doesn't match their memory of you. And that forces them to face the truth they've been avoiding. The truth that you exceeded every quiet expectation they placed on you. The truth that you didn't just rise. You rewired. You reorganized your mindset, your habits, your boundaries, your emotional awareness, your inner strength. You didn't leave the old version behind. You released it gracefully and outgrew it intentionally. And here's the part that unsettles them deeply. They can feel that you see through things now. You see through excuses. You see through influence attempts. You see through flattery. You see through insecurity. You see through intentions. Your eyes don't just look at people, they interpret them. You read energy faster than they can adjust their expression. That's why your silence makes them uneasy. Silence from someone who sees clearly isn't absence. It's awareness. It's understanding. It's truth. And people who depend on illusions dislike being seen accurately. When you look at someone now, they feel the weight of every step you took to reach this version of yourself. They feel the challenges you handled quietly. They feel the lessons you never spoke about. They feel the nights you rebuilt yourself without support. Your calm is no longer misunderstood. It's respected. Because calm from someone who rebuilt their direction hits differently. Calm from someone who knows their worth hits differently. It tells the world that you don't need to prove anything. You already proved it to yourself. But you kept going. You kept learning. You kept evolving, even when nobody was watching. That's why your presence feels refined. That's why your direction feels ahead of its time. And that's why your story isn't slowing down. It's just beginning. Because the truth is simple. They finally realized who you are, but you're only just starting to understand who you're becoming.